That terrorist attack on the Nairobi hotel this past week was really awful. We've got over 20 people dead. We've got 50 as yet unaccounted for. We've got scores who were injured. It just shows again the continued destabilization, the terrorist destabilization in parts of East Africa. And while that was going on in Zimbabwe, you have people confined to their homes after mass demonstrations were broken up by the military and the police. 8 people are dead. 70 people are in hospital being treated for gunshot wounds. They cut off the internet. And why? People were protesting against a 150% increase in fuel prices. There is tremendous chaos in the country, and in the midst of it all, the new president, Mnangagwa, turns out to be as bad as the old president, Robert Mugabe, because Mnangagwa has gone off to Russia seeking loans and seeking further loans from Eastern Europe, and then he is going to the ultimate capitalist jamboree in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, and he doesn't appear to give a damn for what's happening in Zimbabwe. On the western side of the continent, you've got Burkina Faso, the Francophone country I beg you not to visit, because apparently a branch plant of Al-Qaeda has decided to abduct foreigners in the north of Burkina Faso. They kidnapped a Canadian this past week and murdered him, a mining executive. There are similar branch plants operating of Al-Qaeda operating in Mali. And of course, Mali and Burkina Faso are not far from Nigeria, where in the northeast part of the country you have Boko Haram engaged in devastation. And in an unlikely and awful fashion, the Nigerian army, which was sent to quell the Boko Haram insurgency, the Nigerian army is engaged in mass atrocities itself. And in the center of the country, this is new, there is intracommunal violence, ethnic group on ethnic group. It's really frightening, because Nigeria is a country of 191 million people. If it disintegrates, the continent disintegrates. And adjacent to Nigeria, you have Cameroon, where the Anglophone parts of Cameroon in the northwest and southwest want to separate. They are being branded as terrorists by the Francophone majority in the rest of Cameroon, resulting in internal conflict. And that conflict mirrors the conflict that is now going on in Sudan, where after 30 years of totalitarian leadership, al-Bashir, the president, who has been indicted for crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court, is under siege by mass demonstrations for the first time ever in Sudan. And the demonstrations were triggered by a removal of subsidies for the price of bread. Can you imagine the levels of poverty? And immediately to the south of Sudan is South Sudan, which has been in conflict since independence. And of course, we can't forget the Democratic Republic of the Congo at the heart of the continent, where there is now tremendous disputation over the results of a recent presidential election, where the man who was declared president has clearly been fraudulently declared president. God alone knows what's going to happen in the Congo, where literally millions of people have been killed, have died since the Rwandan genocide in 1994. And adjacent to the Congo, you have Burundi, where the president in 2015 said he would run for a 3rd term, unconstitutional, triggering violence with the opposition. 1,000 have died, 10,000 arbitrarily detained, almost 400,000 have fled to adjacent countries, and I can't in this catalogue of horror escape mentioning the Central African Republic, where Muslims and Christians are at each other's throats, and nearly 70% of the country is in the hands of armed groups. I love Africa. I've been going back and forth for almost 60 years. I think the people of Africa are wonderful, but the leadership is venal, opportunistic, and egomaniacal with terrible consequences. And the sense of helplessness is endemic to the world at large. Look at Brexit in the United Kingdom. What did they do? Nobody knows. Look at Donald Trump and the Federal Civil Service in the United States. No one knows how to handle it. This contagion of impotence is everywhere, and meanwhile, people are dying in massive numbers. I have to say that sometimes I get up in the morning feeling pretty helpless, but I'll try to think of something more optimistic next week. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.